We have to talk about the musical Hamilton because a church in Texas just staged its own version of the show and it's completely illegal. And they did it to spread a message of Jesus and bigotry. It's all the things I love to criticize, along with musical theater, which I love, in one package. All my worlds are coming together. Are you sitting down? You should be sitting down for this. I'm going to take you on a wild journey here. Okay, recently, a church called the Door McAllen in Texas announced that it was staging its own version of the musical Hamilton. They even set up a way to reserve free tickets. This website shows you they put some serious thought into this, and the show must have been in the works for a while. Don't throw away your shot to see Hamilton the musical. Come see the much anticipated musical here in McAllen, Texas on August 5th and 6th for free. And don't come alone. Bring your friend and family to enjoy this historical musical you know and love. Apparently, you just have one friend. Now, already that should have set off all kinds of alarm bells. Because even if you're not a theater person, a couple of thoughts should be running through your mind when you see this. Like, that's weird. I didn't know anyone could just put on this show. And wow, free? Really? Because the last time I checked, it still cost a lot of money for Hamilton tickets. Here's the thing. Anyone cannot put on this show. Your local high school can't do it for the spring musical, no matter how much students want to do it. Neither can your local theater, or any professional group for that matter. The rights are not available to anybody yet, and they won't be for a while because the show is still printing cash wherever it goes. If you want to see the show, you have to see it on Broadway, or when one of the official touring companies visits a city near you. Keyword there? Official. It takes years for a musical to make its way down to everyone else who wants to perform it. And even then, it costs a lot of money, sometimes thousands of dollars minimum to acquire the rights to put on the show. Just ask a high school theater director how much he or she paid to stage something as commonplace as Grease. It's not cheap. And that's for old shows. Hamilton? There's no way that's for sale. Like I said, it's making way too much money right now for producers to dilute the product by allowing just anyone to do it. One day it'll happen. That day is not today. Just to give you a comparison here, the musical Rent, which was also a Broadway phenomenon, premiered in 1996. High schools weren't allowed to put on a toned-down version of the show until 2008, 12 years later. Hamilton premiered in 2015. It's got a long way to go before it trickles down. Now, even if the Hamilton people allowed someone else to do the show, you think they're going to say yes to a church that has non-union actors and non-professional singers who will probably perform a subpar version of the show that makes the musical look bad? No. And I haven't even talked about how they're Jesus-ifying the show yet. My point is, there's no way this church was legally putting on this show. Somehow, the Door McAllen is all about Christ, but they never got around to reading the commandment that says thou shalt not steal. Okay, so now it's August 3rd, just days before the first of the two performances, and the pastor tries to get everyone in the congregation to attend their show and bring their friends, or friend, by airing a 1-minute promo of the illegal musical. And I'm not going to play the whole thing because, unlike them, I don't want to violate any copyright rules. But the trailer looked professional. The costumes looked good. The videographers and production team looked like they know what they're doing. Someone directed the hell out of this thing. But that means there must have been professional theater people involved in this staging. This wasn't some ragtag group of well-intentioned Christians who just thought it would be fun to put on a show. Somewhere, there had to be people with a background in musical theater who absolutely knew this was illegal. But no one said anything? Weird. Here's the other thing about the trailer. We can totally mock how it doesn't meet Broadway standards, but this wasn't just some cringeworthy Christian parody of the show. It was like the actual musical, or at least a high-budget attempt at replicating it. There are some wonderful videos on YouTube making fun of church productions that parody pop culture. YouTuber Jenny Nicholson recently did a deep dive into one Canadian church's history of horrible pop culture plays that attempt to spread the gospel message. It's glorious. A link is below. You can thank me later. The point is, if your church wants to stage a story of the crucifixion of Jesus, but with Star Wars characters who are slightly different from the movies, like Luke Air Runner, and they say things like, "May the Lord be with you," it's usually fine. I mean, it's awful, but it's legally fine, because no one is ever going to mistake that for the real thing. But based on this church's Hamilton promo, this wasn't meant to be some cheesy parody. They were going for the real thing. They were putting on their attempt at a real version of the show. Which means if the tickets were free, a lot of people who might have paid money to see the official production could now watch this show and hear the songs with no money going to the people who created the show. Lin-Manuel Miranda is not getting a dime from this church. Have you ever seen a bootleg copy of a movie online where someone obviously took a video camera into a theater and recorded, say, the new Top Gun Maverick movie with Tom Cruise? You know that's not legal. It's a crappy version of the real thing. And you watching the bootleg means the people who made the movie don't profit from it. Anyone who watches the bootleg is arguably committing theft. And just because a lot of people do it doesn't mean it's okay. By live streaming Friday's Hamilton performance on YouTube, not only was this church possibly dissuading people from purchasing a ticket to see the live show whenever it was within driving distance, they were arguably taking viewers away from the version on Disney Plus that company paid $75 million to exclusively obtain. And you know Disney's got lawyers. So now we get to Friday, August 5th, opening night of the illegal show. And right from the beginning, two things were clear. The Dora McAllen people really were trying to put on the real show. And also, they sanitized it for a Christian audience. Just consider the famous opening lines, which, for your sake, I will not rap. How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman? Here's what that looked like in the Christian version of the show.
Scoundrel, orphan, son of a harlot.
Son of a harlot. That is now in my vocabulary. Or consider this line where a womanizing character complains about how it's hard to have intercourse over 4 sets of corsets. Here's what the Jesus people said.
Like up your secrets and horses. Of course, it's hard to keep them from me when I'm coming for your sources.
It's silly, but also you kind of miss the bluntness and crudeness of these characters, which means you're still not getting the version of Hamilton that its creators wanted people to see. But wait, it gets worse. Because in this version, Hamilton says he doesn't need God. And then he gets saved.
Receive Jesus Christ in your heart right now. Amen.
None of that is in the original. There's also a famous line in the show where Hamilton, on the verge of death, asks, What is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. I wrote some notes at the beginning of a song someone will sing for me. In the church version, he says something a little different.
What is a legacy? It's knowing you repented and accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ that sets men free. You sent your sinless Son of Man on Calvary to die for me.
Or how about this? Near the end of the show, Hamilton's wife Eliza, who has now lost her son and her husband in duels, tells the audience she opened up an orphanage. She sings, "I helped to raise hundreds of children. I get to see them growing up." It's beautiful and inspiring. In the church version, she says, "I introduce hundreds of children to Jesus as they're growing up." Which isn't just factually wrong, it makes me not like her, because she sees these orphans as potential targets for her religious indoctrination. We are not supposed to hate Eliza at the end of Hamilton. But maybe the worst thing about this show is what happened on Friday night after it ended, but the live stream was still going on. A pastor got up on stage to seal the deal. The church got all these people in the audience, and now the pastor wants to sell them some Jesus. But look at how he does it.
He wants to help you tonight. He knows exactly what you've gone through. You've gone through maybe broken marriages. Maybe you struggle with alcohol, with drugs, homosexuality. Maybe you struggle with other things in life.
As if people are struggling with homosexuality. So, to recap, a Christian church in Texas staged its own unlicensed, illegal, very expensive production of a popular musical, changed the story to suggest Hamilton found Jesus, and used the whole thing to tell people to stop being gay. Which is really not a message you would expect for a musical theater crowd. I'm not sure which of those things would infuriate Lin-Manuel Miranda more, but it makes me mad, and I have no connection to any of this. But wait, now we get into the real drama. Because at this point, Friday night, people have found out about what they're doing at this church, and they're talking about it. Chris Peterson of the On Stage blog also noted another potential legal issue. Where did they get the music from? I also don't see a live pit. If they use backing tracks, that's another issue as well. Backing tracks are often copyrighted. Using without permission is also against the law. He's right. If you make YouTube videos, you know you can't play the new Beyoncé album in the background without acknowledging it and potentially giving up ad revenue. And that's if your video gets to stay up at all. It sounded like this church took the music from the show and just played it in the background, singing over it like karaoke, and live streamed it to a viewing audience. You can't do that. So, the church quickly took down the live stream video on YouTube and made it private. Someone happened to save a copy before they did that and sent it to me. And for that, I just have to say, thank you, my brother in Christ. Again, anyone who's worked in theater would know all of this. The people at RGV Productions, which put this show together, would definitely know all of this. And yet, the Door McAllen Church did it anyway. But wait, it still gets worse. Because by Saturday afternoon, more people were talking about what was happening, and the church now knew it was in deep trouble. So look at what they did that afternoon. On the Eventbrite page for the show on Saturday, it said the second and final performance was canceled. It says canceled. You can't get a free ticket from that website. But, according to Howard Sherman, a theater veteran and advocate who first broke the news about this story, there was an alleged message from the church circulating among its members that said the cancellation thing was a lie. The show was still going on. A message from the Door McAllen Church. Great news! We are continuing with our showing of Hamilton the Musical tonight. You will still see the Eventbrite listing as canceled. However, we are able to proceed with tonight's showing. No ticket is needed to enter. We apologize for any inconvenience or misunderstanding. We look forward to seeing you and your family tonight at 6 p.m. What? They're just blatantly lying at this point. Who said they're able to proceed? Why say the show has been canceled when it's clearly not canceled? At this point, it seemed like church leaders knew what they were doing was a problem, to the point that they officially shut down the show, except they didn't. Their public proclamations did not match up with their private actions. That's not just shady, it is illegal. And the sad thing is, you absolutely expect it. Because if we've learned anything about conservative Christianity lately, it's that honesty and decency are not values that they care about. Look, the fact that these cast members must have spent countless hours rehearsing for this show is irrelevant. I'm not upset with them. I'm not mocking them. And I don't think you should either. They are pawns in all of this. Blame the people who told them this was okay. The fact that the church must have spent who knows how many dollars to build sets and acquire costumes is also irrelevant. And so is the fact that the church has apparently done this sort of thing for years without getting called out on it. Seriously, they've been doing this for a while. Before last week, you could go online and see their versions of Despicable Me and Toy Story and Beauty and the Beast until they decided to take those videos down from YouTube this week as well. Now, you might be wondering, has the church said anything about all this? Yes, they have. On Sunday morning, the pastor got on stage and claimed the Hamilton team gave them license to perform our version of the show, and that a lawyer associated with the show gave us the okay to continue last night.
We would like to once again thank the Hamilton team for giving us the license to perform our version of Hamilton. And so it was really, really good to be able to get permission for this one. It was outstanding.
But none of that explains why the church said its second performance was canceled while secretly telling people the show was still going on. I'm making this video on Monday, August 8th, and there is an interesting update to this story from the Dallas Morning News. In a statement to the news, Pastor Roman Gutierrez said the church is not anti-LGBT and everyone is always welcome, adding he acquired legal permission from the team behind Hamilton to produce the church's show. On Monday, a spokesperson for Miranda's Hamilton denied that. They denied it! The church lied! The Jesus people lied! The best case scenario here, I think, is that the pastor spoke to some shady dude who probably wore a hat that said Hamilton on it and just assumed everything that man said was true. Which I know sounds inconceivable, but we're talking about people who think Adam and Eve were real people. I mean, they will believe anything. The worst case scenario, which I happen to think is the more likely one, is that they didn't speak to anyone from the Hamilton team and just did this because they believe they're immune from consequences for their actions because that's how it usually works for Christians in America. Also, any church that wants to save you from homosexuality is, by definition, anti-gay. Saying everyone is always welcome does not override the fact that these people think same-sex marriage should be illegal or that trans people don't exist and shouldn't have rights. Bigotry is bigotry, no matter how nicely they try to spin it. Hamilton does not grant amateur or professional licenses for any stage productions and did not grant one to the Door Church, the spokesperson said, adding a cease and desist letter was sent to the church on Saturday after the Friday performance. The church also planned to host a show later Saturday. After hearing back from the door, Hamilton said it told the church it could continue with Saturday's show as long as no pictures or videos were taken, the performance wasn't posted online, and the church stopped hosting productions of the show. The actual Hamilton team sent the show a cease and desist letter by Saturday morning. But maybe, because theater people are nothing if not kind and generous, they didn't want to punish the cast and crew for a mistake made by the church's leaders. So they allowed the show to go on as long as the church didn't share any of it publicly outside the audience that night and promised to stop this BS immediately. But that also confirms what I thought. Hamilton isn't for sale. Not yet. And this church lied when it said it got approval. The Hamilton spokesperson added they would be discussing this matter with the parties behind this unauthorized production within the coming days once all facts are properly vetted. Yes, please discuss this with all the parties involved. Let's get the facts. I want to know whose idea this was and why no one involved pointed out that this was clearly breaking the law, or if they did and were ignored, and I'd like to know what the church is going to do to make up for this. I don't think anyone needs to go to jail or anything like that, but a sizable contribution to a fine arts program, that would be a good start. I mean, if there's one thing we could take away from this story, it's that the Door McAllen Church has a lot of money to waste on anything it wants. Instead of staging an expensive show to convert the audience and spread a hateful message, how about helping students who find refuge in theater? I'm sure a lot of Texas students would love that, including the people in this cast. The thing that makes me most upset about this story isn't that they made a Christianized version of a secular phenomenon. I mean, that happens all the time. It's that they ripped off the creative genius of several people, many of whom, I gather, are probably not religious and are certainly not hateful, and used it to spread a message that directly hurts the people in these shows and the people they love. Hell, this is McAllen, Texas. It's about 10 miles away from the US-Mexico border. How much do you want to bet that a lot of people in this church vote for Republicans who oppose immigration policy and love border walls and don't want refugees in this country because America, all while celebrating a musical about how immigrants get the job done? The hypocrisy is staggering. But the bigotry and theft and refusal to own up to their own mistakes so far, all of that is predictable.